Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining today for the fourth session of the Facility Focus webinar. If this is your first one, just so that you know, this is a recurring webinar series open to all in the facilities, maintenance, engineering, and safety worlds. We pick a different topic each time. We've talked about building plans and the scavenger hunt involved with finding those as-built when you need them, locating shutoffs when you need to have water isolations or electrical panels, and then emergency information of quick access to that. But today, our main focus is driving that productivity through field access to information, specifically equipment details, but all involved with avoiding those trips back to a central location, searching for info, but really speeding up that efficiency in the field. So before we dive into things, I'd love to just start it off with a quick question to open things up, just to understand where right now, when it comes to your technicians, where do they go to find information about locating an equipment piece? So I'll allow you guys to kind of look through that, give it a few seconds to answer through that. And also, while we're waiting for that, thank you everyone for joining. I know I see a lot of familiar names in here. I see new names, different titles. So I'm excited to talk about this subject with all of you. But and yeah, whenever you're ready, we can see how those poll results are looking. Fabulous. Okay, we have a good spread across the board. It's in as-built. It can be that scavenger hunt, like I mentioned, but it's also memory. It's having done so many work orders through there. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback through that. Let's go ahead and dive in to what it is about ARC facilities, but also what it is in the facilities world of finding information. I'm going to cover a few different things coming from the equipment database of having that field verified data, reducing that time it takes for, like you saw in that question, the scavenger hunt to enable that quick decision making in the field, and maintaining that for the long term of establishing SOPs or standard operating procedures for not only what your existing technicians are doing out in the field or what outside vendors are taking care for you. How is that going to help some of your newer technicians as they're coming on board of what it is that's expected of me so I can maintain this equipment piece for the long term? But something that I hear consistently throughout my time in the facilities world, traveling to conferences, speaking with facility and maintenance directors out in the field, regardless of the industry, whether it is K through 12, higher ed, healthcare, manufacturing, there is a gap in people's equipment lists of what is truly out there in the field. It's ranges from 20 to 40. I've seen upwards of 60 to 70 of replaced or decommissioned or swapped out units that have never been documented. And that is the challenge a lot of the time is we do the best efforts out in the field, making the changes, doing what we need to the equipment to service our facilities. But then documenting that can be a challenge because you're out in the field, you're making that change. The process to come back to a centralized place to have that information, adding it into the system, sometimes it is not accessible and it's not possible. So it results in things like this. This was an equipment list that we got from a work order system as an export when we were doing a field verification. And as you can see, there's gaps in places, whether that is in make, model, serial number of just not collecting the panel details or missing locations. But it's also more than just gaps of these small bits and pieces. It can be missing of full-on equipment pieces of things that have been swapped out, have been added, as well as things that may need to be purged of this unit isn't even out there in the field. It's been replaced 3 years ago, but we never had that opportunity or that time in the day to go back and account for that and establish a whole new field verified list. It can be a challenge and it's not on the fault or on the shoulders of anyone because it's never been easy. It hasn't been accessible to do that in the field a lot of the times. And having that mix of old and new data within there does add to that bottleneck of a challenge. So something that I heard consistently was in what is such a frequent work order is hot and cold of sometimes someone will report that it's too hot in my office, and that involves going out there into the field, locating where is the air being fed from? What is the unit? Where is that unit located? How do I fix it? When you're parsing through bits and pieces of information that's missing data, we want to get it to a place where it looks like this, where you have those gaps filled, where you have the instant data, as well as being able to update that in the field. If you do swap out a unit or you've moved it, you've captured a new make model, how can you do that quickly and easily in the field is something that we always want to get towards, and that's that proactive mindset. Um, a lot of this also comes in the hands of institutional knowledge. There is a handful of people a lot of the time that know where everything is. I call them the Carl or the Carla. They've been in your facilities for years. They are that walking encyclopedia, and information and questions typically flow through them of either validating where do I need to go to find this unit, or what do I need to bring, what key. A lot of information sometimes has to come from them because they were there when it happened. They are the living, breathing documentation of that. This can pose a challenge at times, and this is nothing new that I'm talking about when it comes to institutional knowledge. I know everyone out there in their facilities is looking to try and capture that. My point of view and the things that I've seen and heard is the biggest challenge. It's not the effort that we're putting into it, it's the tools, or it is the source where we're trying to capture that and retain it is the challenge. It isn't accessible, it isn't easy. I've always been the mentality that if it isn't easy, it's not going to get done. If you put it on the shoulders of Carl or Carla to put in everything that's in their mind into a system that's complicated, they will miss out on things or they just won't want to do it. And I find that to be something prevalent around the place. So that's one thing to consistently look out for, is my advice is where are we putting that information? Where are we capturing that data? And that's something that we're going to continue to talk a little bit about here is those proactive documentation steps, whether that is through files, folders, Word docs of how you're going through step by steps. Pictures and videos, that is a key element of whether it is that shut off in the ceiling tile in the vending machine room that Carl was there when it got installed. He knows where it is, but now you guys are documenting and capturing either with this dot on the ceiling tile or a photo of it with a note of this is the first wing or the first floor west wing shutoff. That type of detail can be really important for supporting your newer technicians who are just starting to learn what it is about your facility and how it operates. And I like to call where this information goes that single source of truth, whether that is physical or digital. I've seen it in a big red binder that someone called the facilities Bible, that this is where we house that information. There's challenges that come with a physical source of truth. One is that it is a liability sometimes if that is that one copy of it. If someone takes it, leaves it in their car, if it gets wet, can't be taken out of the field sometimes. Maybe it's digital, but I've always been the mentality sometimes a paper mess, when you make it digital, it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make it that much easier. So we'll go through a few tips and tricks on that single source of truth of supporting your technicians access to that information to help support that. So an example of that I had heard just last week, I was over at the IFMA World Conference in San Antonio and got to talk to a lot of people. I was speaking to someone who was part of a community college district here on the West Coast. They run the facilities and maintenance side of things. They were talking about a work order that required an isolation to be turned off, and it was a life science building. So it wasn't an option to turn water off to the whole building, but they couldn't find that isolation. It wasn't documented, it wasn't in the as-built, and the person who knew it best had already retired. So what they had to do was call that person who had already retired, and they walked them through over the phone of it's in this vending machine room above the soda machine in that ceiling tile. Now, like I had mentioned, they've gone through these steps of documenting that with pictures, with notes, and put that into their single source of truth. And that kind of goes hand in hand in that standard operating procedures, those thinkings of how do we keep things standardized and track our inputs of what we're doing in there. This is sometimes something that is relied upon in institutional knowledge. You just trust that that HVAC lead who's been doing these PMs for the last 10 years is keeping things consistent, but maybe we haven't documented the steps that they put into it. Maybe they go above and beyond in certain aspects, and that's extended end of lives. This is where you can start capturing that, whether it is a step-by-step checklist, whether it's involving visual condition assessments. These are all things that can help to grow your digital record keeping. So something that maybe looks like this of a PDF or a checklist of, did you get this measure reading? Did you check this screen? Did you turn this shut off? These are just a few steps that you can help to document what's happening out there in the field and preserve that for the long term, as well as sharing that with the outside vendors, those who may be doing work on your behalf. How can we keep them accountable for the work they're doing in your facility? Maybe it's something like this and being able to track that. But folks, this isn't something that I myself have come up with. This is nothing unique, but this is something that I've taken and kind of melded together from the feedback I've heard from the field, whether it is how people are using that mobile access to be able to make decisions in the field, prevent their technicians from going through a scavenger hunt or being a treasure hunter and having to locate that single answer in this plan. Because the faster they can respond, the quicker they can either reduce that risk and prevent further damage from happening. So enough talking on my part. I want to do a little bit more showing than going through presentations. So let's go into a quick examples of what that may look like from your perspective in the field of accessing things regarding your equipment. Sorry, I may have sketched out a little bit on the presentation. This was the example of the PDF form. And here are some examples of the quotes that we had seen coming out from different people in the field. Sorry about that, folks. My iPad was a little bit glitchy there. But let me move out of the presentation and go directly into what a field accessible tool looks like for equipment data, whether it's separated out by all your campuses because you have a large geographic footprint. How can me as a maybe a brand new technician be able to find out the details within a building? So this is what my idea is of a dynamic equipment list, one that isn't just a snapshot in time of when we did that field verification 3 months ago, when an FCA happened 1 year ago. This is not something that is just a glimpse from the past. This is something that's stayed consistent and up to date. So in this example, from what I had heard earlier in one of the shows last week, was on end of life. That was a really big point of discussion, was how can we, one, maintain end of lives, but especially extend end of lives. So in this example, consider you are that HVAC technician going through and doing some preventative maintenance on your HVAC units. This is how simple it is with a dynamic list to find and zero in on those key points of equipment and tracking those inputs. So say, for example, me being that HVAC technician, I'm focusing in on just HVAC equipment pieces. I'm starting in building number 4, and I want to focus on equipment that we've predicted at an end of life of 2024. So I want to extend that past just this year. If those are the tags I can kind of use as almost quote unquote filters to really narrow down my full equipment list to show where my priority should lie, is something that is very important for the productivity standpoint, where we're really pinpointing where our efforts should go and tracking that. So in this case, I have my 3 equipment pieces that fall under that criteria. Let's dive into one just so that we can see what kind of equipment information we can find. Whether or not you're doing this, maybe you have an outside vendor that you rely on to do some of your preventative maintenance on HVAC. I would love to get an idea a little bit about what it is that outside vendors come to you for information, just to understand that. So just a quick poll question there. This is a multi-choice, so you can click a few options at once. But what does an outside vendor ask for on your behalf to best serve your units? Is it that equipment locations? Where is the asset? Do you have any plans or as-built related to that equipment piece? Do you have the manuals that show what it is to do or how to do it? Maybe they're not familiar with that specific make model, as well as what types of parts do we need? What do you know the filter size so we come prepared? Those are a few of the options that I've heard out there, vendor requests, but I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Equipment locations, absolutely. MEPs asking for plans, O&Ms, part sizes. Perfect. It's a good spread across, but it really is on that equipment location. And that comes into play from what I've heard is a lot of the time a technician is then walking with that vendor, showing them where the unit is. They are then coming back to the plan room and trying to find that set of MEPs or that single line drawing or even the shutoff that's connected to that equipment piece. That's all information that I think should be quickly accessible. And that's not only going to boost the productivity of your team if you're servicing it, but boost the productivity of your outside vendors who are paying you at that premium dollar rates to be doing that. So now focusing in on this equipment record, whether it is that field verified data of panel information like make model, something then that can fill the gaps in your work order or your CMMS system. This is something that can easily be translated out there to fill in those minor gaps. Whether it is, like you saw in that poll question, location was a key element to that. That's something that does save time, that does boost productivity, especially when it takes it past just, okay, what building, floor, and room is it? Maybe I don't even know where that room is. It would be useful to have that equipment piece located on a plan. This is where that field verified data can really come into play of speeding up time and boost the effectiveness of getting your team where they need to go as soon as possible. Or, like you saw in that poll question, it's sharing that with the outside vendor. If it's as simple as sharing that to the documents, whether it's printing it for them physically there, or if it's as simple as texting that or emailing it to them before they show up, that's how you're going to boost their side of things and they're servicing your equipment better and faster. So now that I know, or my team or my outside vendor knows where that equipment piece is and what it is, maybe they need to know what to bring to that service, whether it's that filter size. Maybe before they're even going to that work order, they don't need to go and inspect the unit and understand, okay, it is a 24 by 18 filter. They know what to do and what to bring prior to that work order. And maybe there's something within the notes that Carl or Carla has now come in and added into this equipment record of this is the specific key that you need to gain access to that room to get to that unit, or in this case, a specific wrench size that they found most convenient to service that unit. This is adding and boosting to that productivity and their efficiency to get things done accurately. So whether they are in the field looking at this information as they bounce between work orders, or if this is something at the start of their day before they leave the centralized location, that they're coming equipped with that detail. So now we know what, where, and parts to bring. Maybe I'm on that newer technician side that I've never worked with this specific type of equipment. What do I need to do? Typically, that comes through the answers of asking Carl or Carla, how do I do this? How do I do XYZ? Or it's referencing it in that O&M, whether it's that big binders that are behind you in the shelving that you flip through that you got from your closeout package that has your manual and your warranty, whether it's that kind of information, maybe that is effective and useful in the field. So that can be something that is digitized and now accessible to that unit, whether it is the safety instructions of what to do, or it's that tech data sheet, how they're able to quickly pull that up on their devices, whether it is a phone, an iPad, a tablet, or at their workstation at the beginning of the morning. How can they find that information out quickly and even then search within there, whether it is they're looking for a fan chart of where does that show up? Okay, here's that diagram that I needed to see. That's something quick and easy that they can find and equips them with accuracy to go ahead and complete that work order with speed and with urgency. So just to cover again, we got our parts, we got our location, we know what to do and how to do it. Let me track what I've done now, going back to what you had seen on the SOPs or standard operating procedures. How do I make sure that I'm following in the right footsteps of what Carl and Carla have been doing to these units? Let me track what inputs. So whether that is a step-by-step guide of these are the things that I need to be looking at when I'm servicing the unit, being able to document an account myself that I've gone through and done this, and then calling out anything of irregularities, whether it is debris found in the drain pan, may need further inspection. That's a call out that you can make that now is adding value, is that digital record keeping. So I can even save that of what I've done and add in some evidence to that, adding in a photo of that, just snapping it while I'm in the field from my phone, whether it's an iOS or an Android. Having a tool that can capture visually what's happening there can be important, because now that goes into my past, my history. What have my inputs been? So now you're really judging, what have I been doing to this unit and what is my end result? So I can go back to see, what did John do in July when he came to this unit? Okay, I see that he's gone through and done all the steps, but he didn't notate anything of debris. Okay, he submitted a picture. Let me go ahead and check that. In this example, this was from the last time I did a demo and a picture of me. But in the best cases of scenarios, that will be a picture of that drain pan or that fan belt or a condition assessment. And that's something that's tracked now for the future for you to go back into. And now going back to a little bit on the outside vendor side, if it's as simple as sharing all of this information to them through a link that you can text to them, that you can email to them, that's how we're sharing information externally to keep things accountable. Or they're already there at the unit. If you can see my camera real quick, I have kind of a little metal tag, a QR tag. This is something that you can even place on your unit. So when either it's your outside vendor or your technicians can scan this to be brought up to this type of detail. That's how we're going to enable field access. This is boosting productivity because we're not going back and forth anymore to either find the answer in a plan or in a shared drive, or to wait to get that call back from Carl or Carla of how to do this. This is my goal when it comes to equipment information and having a field verified list that you can pull up in the field and quickly access and update. So whether it's something of, I noticed that a new note should be added in here regarding the bird screen that's there, that I've seen a few holes. Those are notes that can be put in here as well that get pushed to everyone else's device. So everyone's operating and working off of clean, updated, and field verified data. But folks, that's a little bit on the ARC facility side of equipment that we see as being a priority for equipment details and accessing that in the field. Before I jump back to the presentation to start going through some Q&A, I wanted to touch a little bit on other systems involved in this. This isn't what you've seen here as a work order, a CMMS, but this is something that supports that information. So we know that your technicians may be getting their work orders from a separate platform. Maybe while they're in the field, they don't need to be bouncing back to their workstation to complete that work order. If we can quickly link between systems, like you see here, whether it's to Maximo, to Tririga, TMA, School Dude, these are all things of links that you can build in there to pass along your technicians to where they need to get to in softwares. But folks, from here, I'll kind of move back to the presentation and we can kind of get into your questions. Where can I either go back to, slow down, or any thoughts about your facilities and some of the details that I shared?
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. I do have some questions that have come in. The first one here is, am I limited to just the mapping that gets done during implementation, or can my team adjust it themselves?
No, absolutely. This is something that should be malleable, that should be updated and changed as you and your building and equipment is changing. So no, there is no, and I can only speak for our system here, our facilities, but no, there is no limitations of the edits or updates you can make, but also the additions that you can add on here. If there's refrigerators that you guys want to track as equipment, so not facility supported equipment like a boiler or a chiller, but a fridge or a dishwasher. That's also an asset in some situations that you would want information on.
Thank you. Next question I have is, how would a vendor have access to this type of equipment information?
Yeah, great question. So with this, like you saw me share here, whether it is sharing a link to an equipment piece, where they have this full list of data and information, whether it's sending them a picture, whether it's only sharing building plan of where that equipment piece is located, you can have a really good variety of how you're sharing information with these systems. Whether you have it as they have a direct login to your system, or if you're sharing links, there can be a big difference between the two.
Okay, and the next question I have here is, I don't have existing checklists of steps to do for preventative maintenance like you showed. Could we create our own with this system?
Yes, absolutely. So what you had saw of my checklist of my AHU maintenance guide of cleaning this drain or checking this belt, that's something that you can absolutely do. And the best part or the best recommendation for starting that is talking with your technicians. Is there something that they consistently do? And just writing that down, putting that in your single source of truth, of documenting the steps that they do, whether it's for every unit or if it's specific for this make model of AHUs or boilers. That's something that you can absolutely document and then create in a PDF form that has check boxes or comment fields. Absolutely.
Okay, and then I have another question here. Can we start with just one campus first before doing anything with my entire portfolio?
Absolutely. Sometimes it is challenging to eat the whole elephant at once. That if you're a school district that has lots of campuses spread out, or you have a large portfolio, it can make sense to take bite-sized chunks out of that. So, speaking on behalf of our facilities, yes, we can take this in chunks, either doing just equipment information or emergency details or shutoffs. You can have a balance between the two. So it's managing that change with your team.
Okay, and I have one more question here. So I know you showed a little bit about, you showed a link example. This says, how does this interact with our existing work order system? We're planning on changing CMMSs eventually. So how would having ARC facilities affect which platform we decide to go with?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. That's something that's happening quite often. People are changing in and out of systems. They're moving away from the legacy platforms that haven't come into the modern age. With our facilities, we're just based off of links. So the same way that someone would send you a YouTube video link or a news article, same flows for an equipment piece. So excuse me, with that, the way we can operate is that link. It can be in your work order system. Can be in your CMMS, and it isn't dependent on the system. So it's not what people call an integration, because when one updates, then the other has to update with it. That takes time, and we never want to stop information from flowing. So links never break, is my opinion on things like that.
Okay, and one more question here. Our RTU vendor tech gives us a wonderful service report when they complete a repair. Is it possible to upload that document into ARC system to keep track of service?
Great question. Absolutely. So, like you saw, you maybe have your standardized PDF, but then you also get that report from your external vendor. That is absolutely something that you can upload in to that equipment record to keep as part of that digital record keeping, because all of those inputs do matter. So, yes, absolutely.
Great. We did have some folks ask to see a little bit more of the demo. I did put the link in for anyone who wants to request more information. So you can click that link in the chat if you'd like. And you can contact us here at solutions@arcfacilities.com. Connect with Robin on LinkedIn. Visit our website. Robin, thank you so much for this session. Session number 4, a facility Focus, which is a fantastic series. We've gotten a lot of really great positive feedback. Appreciate you showing all the different parts of the solution, Robin, and I'm sure we'll be looking forward to more of these in the coming months. Anything else before we wrap up?
If anyone's traveling to some of the upcoming shows, I know this is kind of the conference season before we get into the holidays, so safe travels to anyone there. And if you'll be at the NFMT Remix in Las Vegas later on this month, hope to see you there. I'll be at booth 507.
Yeah, everybody, thank you so much for spending this half hour with us today. Remember, just a reminder, we're sending a recording in a follow-up email to everyone, and please feel free to send us an email or contact us if you have any questions. And thanks again for being here today. Everybody have a great day.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Ronald.
everyone. Appreciate it.